I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with John Patton Ford, who makes his feature directorial debut with the crime thriller Emily, the Criminal. First of all, mate, congratulations on your Indie Spirit nominations. It's two of them, first feature, first screenplay. There are some killer films in those categories.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. It was all completely unexpected, you know? It was such a tiny movie, and yeah, we're like super pumped.
Yeah, so talk me through the dream of making a first feature with all the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into your passion project, and then the overbearing weight of expectation and hope that it doesn't just vanish into thin air and people actually see it, let alone respond to it and love it.
Yeah, man. I mean, God, it's like when you're making it, you're just trying to make something that you believe in and that is kind of true to you, you know? I wasn't really thinking about how it would be interpreted by the audience or like how commercial it would be or things like that. I mean, I didn't know at the time how to even plan ahead for those things. All I could do was just make like the best version of what I could make in that moment. And I guess we were fortunate in the sense that there's an audience for it. And also like Aubrey's kind of having her own little moment right now with White Lotus. I mean, all of those things were just kind of happenstance. And we were lucky to have them.
So what's the what is the hardest part about making a small independent feature like this? You shot for like 20 days, you had a little bit of time to rehearse, but not a lot, and you didn't have a huge budget. So what kind of what do you have to find within yourself, I suppose, and your team to make something like this happen, where it's kind of like you're really against the odds, and a lot of the times these projects don't actually work?
Man, I think it comes down to the script, you know? Like when you have a really tight shooting schedule like this, we had 20 days, you don't have any time to like mess around or to rethink things or to like discover stuff on the day. It's like you're shooting like 5 or 6 pages a day. So what helped was just having developed the script for a really long time and knowing exactly what I needed. But then just beyond that, I mean, everyone was on the same page. Everyone was really excited to make this movie and this version of the movie. And there was a great kind of cohesive vibe among everyone. I think because everyone knew that we didn't have any time, you know? Yeah. Everyone knew like we have to get this done now or it's just never going to happen. So that all helped for certain.
What kind of things, if you can recall back to during production, what kind of things kept you up at night as a relatively new director? You've probably been working for a very long time, but this is your first feature. What kind of things do keep you up at night?
Man, God, everything. It's funny that I just talked about script because mostly script stuff, you know, mostly like, does that work? Does that story thing work? And does this scene, or is this all just misguided? I think my pattern is to blame myself for most things. Like almost anything can happen to me and I will somehow feel that like I did it. That's like just me. So when making the movie, I saw everyone like doing a really good job and I was so happy with the actors and happy with everything else. So I was most critical of like, am I bringing enough to the table? That's what kept me lying awake at night. That and just like time. Like, can we get it all done on time? Because we would show up to set every morning and I would look at kind of the schedule of what we had to do that day and it seemed like physically impossible. Like shoot this 4-minute scene and then shoot a car chase and then shoot this 4-minute scene and then go home and sleep for 8 hours and come back and do it again tomorrow. It just seemed like how do you physically do this? I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have the benefit of second and third unit, and we'll pick that up later on in reshoots. It's just let's get this done. Let's make it
no
work.
reshoots. Yeah,
reshoots, and it's got to be damn good. I think I find with creative people generally, not even filmmaking, just all the time, self-doubt actually, for some reason, brings the best out of you. What do you think? Do you agree that that's something that you have to just dig a little deeper and find something true that came out of this project?
I mean, I don't know, self-doubt is like what I lead with most of the time, for better or for worse. I mean, I think if you're doubting what you're doing, really it's just you're thinking about it and you're turning over the idea, you're being critical. And that's only going to lead to something that's like more rigorous and more thorough. if you're just really, really confident in what you have and you just execute it without any kind of like, without questioning yourself whatsoever, I just feel like you may ultimately have like a more comfortable and fun experience, but you're probably missing a lot of opportunities to come up with even better ideas that are usually born out of a dissatisfaction from the first idea. So
Absolutely.
like, I don't know, self-doubt's uncomfortable, but I feel like it probably leads to better stuff ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. Also, I think it's very important that you surround yourself with the right people. You obviously did that with Aubrey. Not only is she really fantastic in the lead role and as number one on the call sheet, but she's a co-producer, so she brings other stuff to the table that helps you kind of bring your vision to life. So what did you most value about what Aubrey brought to the table?
Dude, like everything. I mean, she's the best. I can't say enough about her. She came on board really early. She and I met in 2018, so like 4 years, more than 4 years ago. And her initial stuff that she brought on board were just notes. Were just like notes about the script and the character. And she was very like, that was the first thing that I valued so much. She's been doing this a long time, and she really understands the audience and how they're going to interpret things. And so I valued her like instincts as a performer and as a storyteller. But then beyond that, Aubrey's really good at just getting stuff done, at just like putting the word out there. Like she figures out what the movie needs and just kind of knows who to talk to about it, and knows how to put all these things in motion. And just felt like whenever we were really, really in need of some kind of miracle, she would magically make it go down. Uh, and then she was there in the editing room as well. Like she like it like all that like weeks she was just like camped out in the editing room with myself and the editor, because of her experience as a performer, as just like she's hyper aware of how the audience reacts to her, and that carried through with editing. She was like, no, they're not going to understand that cut, that has to be longer. Like she's great, man. She's like a filmmaker. Like she's like a filmmaker who acts.
Yeah,
So that's like who she is.
yeah. I think
Like,
she's got a really promising future actually as a filmmaker. I hope we see some stuff from her. But in the
yeah.
meantime, I want to talk a bit more about the central premise of the film. I had the similar conversation with Aubrey and with Theo. For me, the jumping off point for the audience is, obviously Emily's in debt. She can't catch a break, but there's more to the film than that. That's just the jumping off. I think the pivotal scene is when Yusuf asks Emily where she's at in her life, and she says, "I just want to be free." What inspired you to tell the story about these two people who are at very different points in their life, but they cross paths at just the right moment that they both needed to kind of get to where they were headed? It's hard for me to put into words, but why don't you? You're probably going to say it way better than I do.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I always felt like the student loan thing and the debt was not that important. Like that's not really what the movie's about. It's ironic that so much of the audience has focused on the social issues.
Yeah.
I understand that those are superficially there, but like I can't say that's exactly what the movie's about, for me at least. It's a like an adult coming of age story to me about someone. It's about that moment when we discover what we really like to do and what we're good at, and the expenses, the costs of committing to that thing, and just how frightening and like upsetting and disruptive committing to what you love can be. And that's what her journey and in a nutshell. And for me, her relationship with Yusuf, who's the co-lead played by Theo Rossi, I almost feel like she's on her way to becoming a certain thing, and he's on his way to becoming a certain thing, and they kind of meet in the middle somewhere. Like he's already sort of performing crime, but what he really wants to do is be a landlord, and she's living a straight life, and what she really wants to do is not. And like they have this moment in time where they're both in the same place, and then that moment is over, and in that moment in time they're able to kind of help each other and teach each other separate things. That's, I guess that's how I always saw it, how I always looked at it.
Yeah, that's what I love most about it. I
Yeah,
also like I
yeah.
think you could interpret the film's ending as Emily coming full circle, or perhaps Emily arriving at a point where Yusuf was at the beginning, and it's up to us, I guess, to work out where they're headed. And you necessarily leave so much of that open for the audience to decide. Why did you want that ultimately to be how we leave the film in our head? We don't really know what's going to happen next.
A lot of that just comes down to taste. I remember when I was a little kid, I stayed up way too late watching The Road Warrior, which is like the second Mad Max movie.
So good.
It's one of the best, yeah. And it was one of my favorites as a kid. But anyway, and I feel like it was always on like cable, like in the 90s. And anyway, I was watching this movie, and you're on this big adventure, with this whole crew of people, and then the central character in the middle of it. And then at the very end of the movie, our characters kind of overcome, the bad guys effectively. And then they leave Max, the central character, just in the middle of the road. Like this voiceover comes in and is like, oh, and the Road Warrior, he stayed there and we never saw him again. And like, that's the end of the movie. And I remember it just crushed me that like, that's how the movie ends. You spend the whole time with this guy, and then the movie tells you, the audience, that's as much as we can tell you. And you have to guess for yourself. Like now the story's yours, like we've told you what we have. And now we're going to look to you to kind of for what your best guess is with the rest. And it's an incredibly engaging way to end the story. It ends the story in a way where the audience is now an active participant and not just an audience. And I always felt like that's the high watermark of how to really leave an impression. I don't know if we got anywhere close to that, but that's how I'd like to do it in the future. I'd like for the story to continue in people's minds beyond when the movie itself is over.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly powerful. And in fact, the fact that you're saying that means that the next time I watch your next feature and so forth, I'm going to keep that in mind, that we're going to finish the film and I'm going to have questions, and questions are good because what's going on in my head is terribly, extremely powerful subjectively for myself. It's a really good way to do it. It brings me to this. When I spoke to Theo, he blew my mind when he said that you filmed an alternative ending, because I was really heartbroken about Yusef's journey. I felt so bad for him because I was really, really connected with that character for some reason. Talk me through, the alternate ending, and then you have to make certain choices. Obviously, you wanted it to end on a more, like on a note that wasn't so conclusive, I suppose.
Sure. I mean, I don't know if it quite qualifies as like alternative ending. It's just like, we shot some stuff that we took out because it didn't work so great.
Yeah.
That's maybe more like,
yeah, right.
But yeah, I don't know what Theo told you exactly, but there's a scene where Yusef's character, we see him like in the hospital and he's survived and he's speaking to the police, and this leads them to her apartment. And so we had the story beat where effectively he like narcs her out in the end. And we took it out because it was weird. It sort of violated the POV of the movie. It was the scene without Emily in it. It just felt very strange. And so then we were like, oh wow, do we just leave him in the car? Then that was never any of our intentions. That's not how the script goes. But then watching it where she leaves in the car is just a lot better. Or I thought it was better. It's more bold and certainly a bigger leap for her, and so much more questionable about her character. I just thought it was more compelling all around. And then there were multiple different versions of the ending we did where she gets away. There's a version where she's not teaching that room full of people. There's a version where there's like much more time spent in another country with like other scenes and stuff, and there's a version that's much briefer. I don't know, we cut it a lot of different ways, and ultimately we had to just like, we had to go to Sundance. So we had to stop.
It's like, we need to finish this.
Yeah, I think we finished the color correction like 48 hours before it premiered at Sundance. So yeah.
Do you have fingernails left? Like that? It's horrifying.
We cut the 6 weeks, like
wow,
just bonkers. I don't even know how we did that.
That is bonkers. I can't believe you survived. Yeah, I think Emily, like the way that it ends, I'm in two minds about her. She's not the hero of the story really, and that's good. Like I walked out. What I mean is, on the second viewing, I was like, you know what? She's actually not that great. She's not a nice person, but who gives a shit? I don't care if I relate to her or not. I just found her story so compelling. And I guess as the filmmaker, you want the audience, I suppose, to feel that way. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess yeah, I'd like the audience to be on the fence. I mean, for me, I find it kind of thrilling when I relate to a character a little bit, but then the character is doing things that I wouldn't quite have the bravery or the impulse to do. If it's someone who I relate to 100% and they're doing things that I would completely sign off on, it's very comfortable.
Yeah,
But do you want to be comfortable watching a movie? Or I rather be tested and challenged a little bit, I guess. Um,
yeah,
and I love the effect that like Raging Bull has, that has this character who suffers from insecurities that we can all understand and relate to. We just wouldn't make the decisions that he makes. So
right.
we understand the impulse. We just wouldn't do the action. And 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 in that like space between like understanding the impulse but not being on board with the decisions he makes, that's what makes it compelling to me, because they're sitting there going, I can't believe he's doing that. Would I ever do that? Would I do that in that situation? Like you start thinking about yourself and what you would do.
Yeah,
um yeah, I like that, as opposed to stuff where like you don't relate at all. Like I don't know, like American Psycho is a movie that's just kind of, it's great, but it's sort of like watching an alien or watching a car
yeah,
wreck or something you're not totally in. um yeah, I guess I like the middle ground personally.
yeah. I think the way you put it is absolutely so much better than the way I put it. It's more just like I wouldn't do what she does, but I totally can see why. And I still kind of like her, and I'm following her, and I want her to succeed. So I guess that's the difference. That's a bit more nuanced. Final question is this: when I'm thinking about what I'm telling people, you should see Emily the Criminal. It's so great. Why is it great, Rob? Well, here's an example. I love the script, the way that she is so defiant. When someone insults her, she demands they say it again. When she's robbed at knife point, she finds a way to go back to them, tase them, and take the dog back. She stands up to people, unlike Yusuf. He can't stand up to people. He's not capable of it for some reason. He's defeatist. I love that dichotomy. I love her spark. It's so perfect for Aubrey in what we know about her persona. Um, do you agree that that's an aspirational quality that the film has, that we want to tell people to fuck off? We want to tell people to say that again. I love that side of the film.
Oh, me too. I think it's totally aspirational. I think the whole thing is aspirational, to me at least. I think the idea of someone learning what they really love to do and what they're good at, and then embracing that and going for it despite the risks and despite the damage it might cause to themselves or even others, is like, can be weirdly aspirational. I'm not like advocating for you to be like her or have a life like hers, but I am advocating for you to be similarly aggressive in your own life, assuming you want to do something redeeming, in terms of her being proactive. Like that's just the sort of character that I want to write and the sort of character I want to watch. I spent a lot of years trying to get different sorts of movies made, dramas, coming of age stories. And by the time this came around, I was like, I want just a really proactive character who's going to just make stuff happen at every point. And I don't regret that. It's a lot of fun to make movies about people like that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, it
Yeah,
was so much fun watching the film, John. Thank you for your time today. Congrats on a fantastic featured directorial debut, and good luck at all the awards.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Robert.